Public health official, the former host of the America Dissected podcast, and a good friend of mine, Abdul El Sayed. Abdul, thank you so much for taking the time.
Brian, it is always a privilege to join you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thanks. Now, I wanted to bring you on because I know that you have an announcement that you wanted to make, so floor is yours.
I do, Brian. Thank you so much. Look, I think folks are super frustrated with what they're seeing out of DC. You see Elon Musk and Donald Trump, like literally the two worst players in the worst video game you ever played, trying to destroy real things that help people. You ask, where do we go from here? Who are the leaders who are willing to step up and speak truth to power, but also willing to speak truth to pain? And so I've been, over the last several months, having conversations with folks across my state, thinking a little bit about where we go from here. And most recently, our U.S. Senator Gary Peters announced that he was retiring after a long and storied career. So I've made the decision to jump into the race for U.S. Senate. So I'll be running for U.S. Senate here in Michigan, and I'll be running to make sure that in the richest, most powerful country in the world, that we do things about how hard it has gotten to live in this country, whether you're talking about the ability to afford your groceries or to get your kid childcare or to see a doctor and not get hit by medical bills that'll send you into collections. Those are challenges that everybody faces. And we have to be answering those questions. And I believe, as a two-time public health official who's made my career building agencies that deliver for folks, somebody who's advocated for public health and healthcare in a moment when too few people feel like they have access to them, I think I have an opportunity here to continue a conversation I started with Michiganders back in 2018 when I ran for governor. And I believe that when we listen, when we learn what is giving folks anxiety when they look in their kids' eyes or as they're trying to fall asleep, when we deliver real solutions that are focused and tailored to the challenges of working people and not to what some corporate mega donor thinks, I think we can win. And not only can I get elected to the U.S. Senate, but more importantly, we can take back the Senate, take back our government, and deliver for real people.
What gives you the faith at a moment right now where the Democratic Party polls low, obviously had a bad election cycle, lost the House, the Senate, and the White House, and folks have little faith in the party as it stands right now. And so, what drives you in this moment where there's really so little overtly to have faith in on the left?
I think there are three things. That number one, I think the frustration that Michiganders in particular, but frankly people all over this country have, is they don't feel like politicians are listening to them. And there was one thing that Trump got right, is that he was speaking to the pain that people are experiencing in their lives. Now, when it comes to Trump, as you well know and have covered ad nauseum on your podcast and your channel, that when it comes to Trump, it's always self-serving, it's always ham-fisted, and it's always chaotic. And so he never had any answers. But he was speaking to that frustration and that anger, and he was curdling it into cynicism. I know that we have far better solutions to the challenges that people face in their lives if we're willing to show up and listen, but we're willing to actually articulate solutions to problems. And I think the frustration that we have is you hear a lot about Democrats looking for a message. Like, look, the message is right here. It should be on your heart. It should be what you feel when you see what he's doing and what you say then to people about what you want to do about it. And when we do that, we win. I also know that he's vastly overreading his mandate. I mean, he's fundamentally running roughshod over our Constitution, disappearing people off the street for the great crime of signing their name to an op-ed, destroying our global economy, only then to turn around and give a stock tip to his billionaire buddies so that they can make $300 billion collectively, even while the rest of our 401ks and our retirements took a hit.
And laugh about it in the Oval Office.
Exactly. Like it's like a sick joke to him because he never really cared about us. So if we do this work, I know that we can take back the House, we can take back the Senate, and in 2028 we can take back the presidency. But we've got to fight back. And to fight back well, you got to have something to fight for. You hear a lot of folks saying, "Oh, we're going to fight back against Trump and Musk," and you're like, "Okay, so back to where? Like where? I mean, the frustration I often have is like Democrats, we have our own vision of make America great again. It's like 2015 before Trump descended down the escalator.
Yeah.
So like you got to give people a positive, real view of what the future can yet be, and then inspire them to work toward that future. If we do that, I know we win.
I'm going to press you on the fighting aspect, if for no other reason than the fact that this has been like my entire raison d'etre in the lead up to the 2026 cycle is I think it's important to have Democrats who will actually fight and will actually use the tools at their disposal and tools that we don't know are at their disposal, because we have been saddled with a Democratic Party for too long that still operates like it's politics in the year 1999. I mean, we have seen the ways in which not only Democrats are weak and slow to respond, but the ways in which Republicans know that they're going to be weak and slow to respond. And so it's baked into the cake that they will just control the narrative, that they will be able to rewrite the rules in their favor. It's why we have Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court and not Merrick Garland. It's why, effectively everything we do in terms of messaging is allowing the right to dictate what the message is going to be, from the days of, okay, we didn't respond quick enough after the ACA was passed and Republicans branded it death panels and killed the Democrats in the 2010 midterms, all the way to today where a plane crashes and Democrats don't fill that void and Republicans do, and suddenly it's the fault of DEI and everything in between. And so, in terms of your ability and willingness to fight, can you just dig into that a little bit more in light of the fact that we have had a Democratic Party for so long that has been utterly unwilling to actually wield the tools at their disposal?
Yeah, well, Brian, I really appreciate both all you've done to remind us what we're fighting for and all your audience has been doing to fight back. And yeah, we got to fight back. And look, we've got some folks in elected office who've forgotten that there is a procedural part of the job and then there's a leadership part of the job. And you got
Yeah.
elected to do both. And just because the procedural part doesn't give you very many options doesn't mean that the leadership part goes away. And I think you're reminding folks of that every single day. I'll tell you, look, my name's Abdul, which, if you haven't put together by now, is not the best political name, but it also means that you learn some things about being someone who doesn't always fit in, just as a function of your name. And I moved around quite a lot when I was a little kid. And I used to tell my parents on the first day of school in a new school, look, I'm going to have to get in a fight today, right? Because I learned pretty quickly that if you let the bully take your lunch money, you're never going to eat lunch. So I don't back down, and I know how to fight with the best of them. But I also know that you have to know what you're fighting for. It's not just about fighting back to fight back. It's about fighting back because we believe in something that is bigger and better than what you are doing to our federal government and what you're doing to our society. And so you can't beat something with nothing, right? And so we've got to know what that something is, and we've got to feel it in our hearts and in our bones. And I think when we do that and we fight for that vision, folks see that in us, and that's how you're able to build the kind of movement that builds toward the future. And the worry I have is that for a long time, we've had this fundamental schism between what our voters want, working people in communities all over this country, including right here in Michigan, and what donors want, corporations who continue to want to have access to politicians to make sure that everything works for them. And when you can't find an easy way to make them happy, what tends to happen is you end up finding a least common denominator, which has you saying nothing at all. And then you're told to say it with enthusiasm. So you are saying nothing
Yeah.
enthusiastically, which just makes you sound completely crazy and out of touch. And so my point is, forget the donors for a minute, right? Go talk to people. Ask
Yeah.
them about the challenges in their life. Talk to those problems and say it like you mean it. And if you do that, that's how you ignite the fight. That's how you bring people together and say, you know what? We can beat him, right? Because we've got something we know we are working toward, a world where all of us don't have to keep fighting, where we can come together as communities in an inclusive whole that makes us greater than the sum of our parts. That's what we got to fight for. So yes, fight back like hell. Don't let them eat your lunch. Don't let them take your lunch. And if they come after you, you fight like hell. But also, remember what you're fighting for.
I love that because so often it feels like, especially when it comes to the US Senate, like we send these people in who then fight for the procedural elements of the Senate, but not the thing that they're in the Senate to do. And so it so often feels like we're fighting, we've got folks who the more conservative members of the Democratic Party, not to pick on, well, fuck it, who cares? But Kirsten Sinema was there fighting for to preserve the filibuster, and it's like, are you there to defend the filibuster, or are you there to actually fight for what the Senate, what Senate Democrats are supposed to be doing? And it feels like so often people are just preserving or defending the institutions as opposed to the reason that they're in those institutions, which is to make some change, make sure that people have access to healthcare, make sure that reproductive rights are protected, make sure that climate change is combated. All the things that you get elected ostensibly to do, but that often seems to go away as people kind of get sucked into the machinery that is our government, and feel like they become cogs in that machine as opposed to still, in working in defense of the people that they represent. I do want to dig into the fact that, you were, as you said, a two-time health official, and we've got a healthcare crisis in this country, and we're at a moment right now where it does seem like Republicans, whether through this Maha movement, whether through RFK Jr., are co-opting health and wellness in this country. And so I'm curious from your perspective, what your thoughts are on that, and how Democrats regain our footing on an issue that clearly has long since been championed by the left.
Yeah, we should be the leads on healthcare and public health in this country. But I'll tell you what happened. Over the course of COVID-19, we in public health were out there trying to get folks to take a vaccine that hadn't existed a year ago for a disease that they didn't necessarily have yet.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, a lot of folks in our country can't afford basic insulin despite the fact that they know they need it because they have diabetes. Now, it's a difficult thing, right? When you know there's a medicine you need and you cannot afford it, and somebody else who ostensibly is supposed to be the person who's fighting for your health care is coming to you with a new medication that didn't exist a year ago.
Yeah.
And we don't often think about the fact that if you're not out there fighting for the things that people know they need, then when you show up and say, hey, this is a thing that I think you need,
How are
they
they going
might
to
not
trust
trust
you?
you.
Right.
Exactly. And so we have to be about guaranteed health insurance for everybody. It's the reason I co-wrote the book on Medicare for All. And not only that, but in our public health agencies, we got to be out there fighting the fight for public health in times when there aren't crises. That's why when I was director of Wayne County's Department of Health, Human and Veteran Services up until just a few weeks ago, we were out there erasing medical debt for upwards of 300,000 people, $700 million of medical debt, because you shouldn't have to be saddled with the cost of debt to go and see a doctor if and when you get sick. We were putting Narcan, life-saving anti-overdose reversal medication in places all over the county. We were putting glasses on kids' faces. Those are things that folks understand as tangible. They're like, you are solving a problem I know I have. So when you show up and you tell me I got a problem I don't see coming yet, I know you're going to be there for me,
Right.
and that you're telling me the truth.
And
the
and by the way, that is indicative of there's a larger trust problem within the Democratic Party, a larger credibility problem within the Democratic Party, that most Democrats haven't afforded themselves much credibility, except for people like Bernie Sanders. And if you look at Bernie Sanders, and this isn't, look, I know that there's going to be people who are watching who are moderate, there's people who are watching who are progressive, but the reality is that regardless of where you stand on the political spectrum, that Democrats haven't built themselves enough credibility, except for people who have been repeating the same message for decades, like Bernie, and that's why he is drawing the crowds that he is right now.
No, I really appreciate your point, and I want to say something about labels because I think, I spent some time in my life studying things that are really, really complicated. Politics just shouldn't be that complicated, right?
Yeah.
And we get caught up in our labels, like, are you a
Yep.
progressive? Are you a moderate? And to me, the question really is, are you fighting for working people?
Yeah.
And can they see that you're fighting for them? And can you explain how the things you're doing with the power that they give you is shaping their lives for the better? And if you can't do that, then maybe politics is not for you. But like, the truth of the matter is that Bernie has been talking about the challenges that working people face before you and I were even a twinkle in our parents' eyes.
Yeah.
Right? And so when he shows up at 83 years old in your town telling you that you deserve guaranteed health insurance and that this economy has been rigged and is getting more rigged by people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, you kind of believe him because you're like, dude's been saying the same thing for a
Right.
long time. And you know what? Everything he foresaw kind of happened. And when I ran in 2018 for governor, I said something I think people were just not quite ready to believe at the time. And that was that Donald Trump wasn't the disease, he was the worst symptom of the disease. And the disease had to be something, right, that is bigger than Donald Trump. And it's the corruption of our politics by billionaires, oligarchs, and corporations in ways that leave us with less and less, even as they get more and more. They monetize us, right? Profiteer off of our illness when we get sick, profiteer off of our eyeballs when it comes to the incentives of huge tech corporations. And that's just two examples. And if we're serious about addressing the situation that Trump exploited to get elected in 2015 and again in 2024, we got to be serious about owning up to the fact that unfortunately too often we get watered down by that same politics because you wouldn't want to say something that pissed off a, I don't know, health insurance CEO when you talk about guaranteed health insurance when your vision doesn't include them in it because, well, that CEO is making $18 million. Every
Right.
single one of them was a dollar that somebody like you or me spent to get our family health insurance, not to buy him a yacht in Florida.
Right. Abdul, how can my viewers and listeners help your campaign?
Well, I really appreciate that, Brian. Go to abdulforsenate.com. If you want to volunteer with us, please. If you're in Michigan, host us as a house party. I'd love to come to your home. And for everybody else out there, chip us a couple bucks, $5, $10, $15. We need you. I don't take money from corporate PACs if that's not clear, and they wouldn't want to give me money anyway. And so I need it from you. So I do hope that folks will come forward, step forward, be a part of what we're building here, because this is bigger than Michigan, even bigger than party politics. This is about the future of our country. And if we don't have an affirmative vision, I worry about where Trump and Musk are going to continue to drag us backwards.
Well, look, I couldn't be more excited the fact that you jumped into this race. You have been a clear and strong voice throughout the entirety of our friendship and this entire process here, both for your first campaign in 2018 and now. So very excited that you've thrown your hat into the ring and really excited to see where this campaign goes. Highly recommend for those who are watching and listening right now, please help donate, volunteer, whatever you can to help this campaign and help elevate some voices who are the future of the Democratic Party here and who very well should be. So, Abdul, I appreciate your time today and best of luck in the campaign trail.
Brian, thank you. Thank you for the fight that you put up every single day. I know how hard you work. Y'all, you don't see all the work in the background that folks like Brian and his team are putting in to make sure that we stay educated about what's happening and that we keep the fight forward. So, Brian, thank you. And to all of you who are part of Brian's movement, I hope that you'll join ours because we're working for the same goal, which is a country that is more fair, more equal, and a place where all of us, no matter who we are, get the opportunity to thrive. And we deserve it and we can have it.